Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Jackie Burt with the Tales to Tell podcast. And we're in the clinic today. You might hear some noise. We're pretty busy. I am joined today with Dr. Candice Anderson. She's one of my associates, and I'm so glad that she agreed to sit down and talk to me about all things veterinary and some non-veterinary, being a mom, being a vet, some really great subjects. And so let's get right to it. I know we have a lot we could talk about. We could probably make this a bunch of podcasts, but we formulated a little plan before to keep on track. And I wanted to start off with the question of, tell me what the 8-year-old Candice Anderson, and I would have to ask you your maiden name.
Bartlam.
What
Yes.
was the 8-year-old Candice Bartlam like?
Pretty much kind of how I am now, very headstrong, don't like being told no. I honestly sometimes have issues with authority figures in general because it's hard for me to take no as an answer sometimes.
So what did that look like at 8? Were you tough?
My parents were stressed all the time, I would say. It was just a lot of discipline and just trying to remind me that, I'm still a child and I have to listen to my authority figures and my parents, my grandparents, my teachers. I was pretty headstrong. I knew what I wanted and I really did not like anybody telling me no. That's
not a bad thing. I can understand that from a parent's perspective. That could be tough, but then in the long term, probably they were relieved.
Yeah, I mean, I think they realized that they raised a very strong-willed woman. So I think it did work out to my advantage. And hopefully they can see that it was all worth it. But they do laugh when my daughter shows some of those same tendencies, and they tell me it's karma. So
absolutely, we definitely get that back with kids. It's not easy. And also with kids, I think we get a little bit back of who we chose to have kids with.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to also make up for that person's shortcomings, and we have to parent those as well, which can be really difficult. So did you know at that young age you wanted to be a vet?
No, I didn't. I knew I wanted to work with animals. I always loved animals. And, most kids did at that age, but I had, you name it, I had it in my house.
Okay.
I had guinea pigs, ferrets, parakeets. I used to catch lizards and keep them in a terrarium at home, frogs.
And you kept them all alive?
No, not always. I did my best, but no. I learned by trial and error. So that was a thing. Was that, even though I had all these animals, I grew up in a really small town with one stoplight.
Okay.
And there was no vet in town. He was the next town over across the bridge.
In what state?
This was in Virginia.
Okay.
And so my pets didn't really get vet care.
Okay.
So if there was something wrong,
they might have died.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yep. My dad used to make jokes that he can take care of an animal's problems with a 2-cent bullet.
Yep.
That was his saying. And he did. So,
yep.
I think that's kind of what shaped me even more to wanting to help animals. I still didn't know for sure I wanted to be a vet per se, but I definitely knew I wanted to help animals in some capacity at that age.
Sure. I know, and that might be unique for people to hear, but I can totally understand that, right? As you said, so many kids, so many children, we grow our kids up the same, to be nurturing and care for things. And it's easy to care for animals or for babies and little children. And then how many kids do we see come in here, right? And they say, I want to be a vet. I want to be a vet. And then you ask them 5 years later and less want to be a vet. And you ask them 10 years later, and how many are not even pursuing that anymore, which I totally understand. I totally understand that. And I had touched on this in a previous podcast, but the reasons that we think we want to go into veterinary medicine, and thankfully we do have those, is not always why we end up going in, and certainly not what keeps us in veterinary medicine. So, and you could probably help me and expound on this, but we start with our love of animals. That is not enough to keep you in this profession.
Correct.
If you only love animals, you will not make it.
No. Yeah. There's a lot more involved. You have to actually like people. A lot of people, when they go to vet school, they decide they want to be a vet, think, well, I don't like people, so I'm going to work with animals. And that is not the case at all.
It should be the other way.
Yeah. I mean, it really should.
Yeah. You really have to like people and still have boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Establish boundaries and be healthy with people. Mm-hmm. But you do need to enjoy working with people. You will see them cry. They will get ticked off. Mm-hmm. They do.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to maneuver for sure. We both probably have experienced that even in the last week.
Oh yeah.
Right? We could probably touch on that as well. But tell me, and I definitely want to go back and talk about your experience in vet school. So don't let me forget that. But talk to me just a little bit about that, how that feels as a veterinarian. So we do a lot of good and we don't always hear about that. I mean, you had a great experience though. Didn't somebody bring you flowers this past week?
Yeah, it was a very, very dear client that I met her through here. So we didn't have any prior relationship, but she just means a lot to me now. We built this relationship because she trusts me and I really appreciate that when clients say that they trust me.
I know.
It goes a long way. But yeah, she had to say goodbye to her dog and it was hard to help navigate that decision. It's never an easy decision, but she was very grateful, not only for me, but the whole staff. She was just so thrilled with how well she was treated and how much empathy she was shown.
Right. Yeah. And it, as two honest people, I know it just stops us in our tracks when we think that someone wouldn't trust us.
I mean, that's like one of my hardest things to hear from a client is that they don't trust me. You have to trust your veterinarian. Just like I have to trust my doctor, my human doctor. I'm not going to go see my doctor and look them in the eyes and say, I don't trust what you're telling me.
Right.
If that's the case, I'm just not going to go see them.
Yeah. It just perplexes me. And I will have to say, I haven't shared the story with you, but I was in the room a few days ago and I didn't leave the room once. There were 2 kitty cats. And I can read the room pretty well. Done this for a long time. So I kind of knew the client was a bit nervous. And one kitty cat came out of the carrier and was looking at the kitty. And the client had said to me, he's very nervous. He's going to be very upset. He's not going to let you do anything. And it was actually a very agreeable kitty. We did not have to even suggest sedation, nothing like that. This was a routine annual exam that was going to be vaccines and maybe blood work.
Yeah.
And I do the exam and I go and I sit down next to the client and I explained. So the next step is I'm going to go over and give the vaccinations. And she looked at the kitty and she said, he was laying on his side and kind of purring and a little bit falling asleep with the technician there kind of petting him. And she said, you sedated him. What did you give him? You just sprayed something. And I said, I did not. No, you had to have. You had to have sprayed something. You had to have sedated him. And I said, no way. There is no such thing.
No.
We don't operate that way. I hadn't even left the room. The cat had remained in front of this client the whole time. And then our conversation that we had, it hit me, even all of that in front of a client. So we have people come to us with their whole life and all of their experiences of trust or not trust. And then we have this short window of time in which we can try to explain to them, hey, you can trust me, as I would expect people would, just because I am someone that can be trusted. Yeah. But it's a lot. Yeah. It is a lot. And then throw in if something doesn't go as planned or as we would hope. Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. It's really heavy and it's really hard. And especially for those newer grads, like I was talking with Dr. Pereira previously, the newer grads that don't have the experience of those positive interactions. Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, mentally. Yeah. Because you already are, in that stage, you don't even trust yourself fully. And then to have a client also not trust you is completely demoralizing. So it was hard. My first year out, that's pretty much what I dealt with the whole time. So it's really hard to get past that and start to actually build your confidence and trust yourself. Right. So throw in, your kids wake you up at night and you're tired. Throw in, you have a chippy conversation with your spouse before you walk in the door, or maybe somebody leaves you a stinky review or something. I mean, who knows, right? It's just how everyone's day can go. And if we all just remember that, us as well, for the people that we interact with outside of here. But I just thought that was a very interesting experience that I had with that client, because you and I had that conversation about trust and respect and how important it is. And just if we were more, I'm not that people have to walk in the door with trust, but even to just say, I feel uncomfortable, or I feel vulnerable, or, the last time this happened, and that we can talk about it with a client so that we can start to form that relationship. It does really help for absolutely. Us. And so that our recommendations can be taken seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd like to ask you, please tell us, so where did you go to vet school? So I think it's so fascinating. And then I wanted to talk too a little bit about that bond of the human and animal and how it's different where you went to vet school, say, than what we might see here in Winter Park.
Yeah, so I went to Ross University in St. Kitts, which is a small island in the West Indies, St. Kitts and Nevis. So St. Kitts, it was great to go to school there. Sometimes the school gets a bad rap because a lot of students have a hard time focusing because they're on a tropical island with lots of bars and beaches. That was not me. I hardly went out. I studied all the time. One of the top in my class because it just meant so much to me to do really well and learn all I could. Right. But yeah, the culture of the people on the island is very different than what it is here, revolving around animals. Dogs typically don't live in the house that I could see. I was in a club on campus where we used to go around once a month. And we would provide free veterinary services to the animals on the island. I rarely ever saw a dog inside the house. Most of them were either running around loose or they were tied up with a rope outside. Saw a lot of embedded collars that way. Yeah. But the dogs really just served a purpose there. They weren't technically family. The islanders, they didn't push their dogs around in strollers or buy them, clothes. Right. It wasn't a lot of treats. It was the food they got. It was either table scraps or it was whatever the school could donate to them. Sure. Or through that club. Their vaccines, I think there was a vet on the clinic that would do, or a couple of vets on the island that would do vaccines, but a lot of them relied on the school to help them out.
And probably a lot of donated items from the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, which is so nice.
Yeah, a lot of, without that, most of these dogs would not have had any kind of prevention. We saw a lot of disease on the island, like fleas, babesia, tons of babesia.
Oh, wow. Probably heartworm positive.
Oh, yeah. A lot of heartworm.
Very common. Okay.
Yeah, so saw a lot of things like that. And there were no heroics with the patients there. We didn't do any of these big surgeries like fixing a ruptured cruciate ligament or anything.
Or a fracture.
Nope. Yeah. They didn't, and not to fault them. It's just that's not what the dog meant to them. The dog was there for a specific purpose, and it was not technically to be maybe for some, but in general, not really to be a family member.
Of course. And there's a survival for the humans as well. And possibly once their needs were met, then that could go on to their pet, but their family and their children would come first. And I think for people who have traveled or have experienced just reading and learning about other countries, that's not uncommon. Right. That what we do here, pushing in the strollers and the outfits and the jewelry and the things that we witness in our clinic, as touching as it is, and as much as we realize that they're a part of the family, it's a luxury.
It is. Yeah. Driving around the island, you would see dogs, donkeys, cats, chickens just roaming free. Sure. I don't even know for sure if all these animals belong to people. Sheep, a lot of sheep running around. I'm assuming some of them belong to people, but again, it was, they were just all over the place, and that's just how it was. And then, and you're right. Family, their human family came first. I would drive around and literally see people bathing in a bucket outside of their house, and they didn't have floors in their house. For some of them, didn't have floors. It was just dirt, no windows, no TV, just a few curtains hanging up here and there, no door. So if I lived in that situation, I definitely would not be prioritizing my dog's health. You know, it would be myself and my family first.
For sure. It's the hierarchy of needs. And that's absolutely. And in a way, you think of the stressors that we have here, and we'll get into that about some of the best and maybe the most difficult parts of being a veterinarian, especially maybe in America, but there maybe less stress, maybe less stress to be a veterinarian.
I would say, yeah, I think so. The vets on the island were a lot more laid back than there wasn't that constant fear of being sued. I don't remember hearing anything like that on the island. It was, they just liked doing what they did. They went to work. I mean, I had to take my dog to the only small animal vet clinic on the island. And he always had to sign a certificate saying she was safe to fly. That was it. Not a health certificate, just saying she could fly. And I remember I walked in with her, and he just walked up from behind the desk, didn't take me to an exam room, took a stethoscope quickly, less than a second, put it on each side of her chest and signed the form. And that was his exam. So
right. And now we have special qualifications we go through. We take special CE. We pay a hefty fee, if you will, to be certified to write these certificates. I think you and I are some of the rare ones in the area that will do these, because we seem to get a lot of these. We have a special staff member who only handles filling these certificates out for us.
Yes. We'd be lost without her.
And we take hours and hours and hours to research, fill these out, forward them electronically to, I don't even know where, because that always seems to change.
Yeah, it's always
and
some
it has
new
to be
criteria.
Right, done within 10 days of when this person decides they're going to travel.
Yeah.
So we definitely have different legal systems here. Thankfully, thankfully and not thankfully sometimes.
Yeah.
So to that point, let's say what's one of the great things that you feel you have experienced with being a veterinarian at this point in your practicing life? What's one thing that you're like, I really like this, or I'm really thankful for this part of veterinary medicine?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound weird because it's probably not what most people would say. I think most people will be like, oh, it's strengthening the human-animal bond. And I enjoy all of those things. But for me, it's being able to solve the really hard cases that other doctors have not been able to. And to no fault of their own. But I just really, I love those. I love puzzles. And I think that's part of what I really love about being a veterinarian is just being able to solve a puzzle.
That's great.
And just being able to pull from all of my knowledge to try to figure these cases out. Like I had this one cat that came in, second opinion for hair loss all over its entire ventral abdomen. And as soon as the client flipped the cat over, I remember this one slide from vet school of a cat that had pancreatic cancer. And it was this rare paraneoplastic condition. And I told the owner, I said, I think your cat has pancreatic or liver cancer. And I think they looked at me like, what are you talking about? We were told this was a fungal infection. You know, I mean, it just went from just a skin infection or allergies to your cat's going to die, basically.
A second opinion to, I remember you coming in the back and telling me about that case. Yeah.
It was so, I mean, obviously, when we did the ultrasound and found that his liver was completely riddled with cancer, I felt bad for the cat, but it still was just this feeling of, this is why I worked so hard in vet school.
Yeah.
And I even posted a couple of pictures of it and a story about the case on the Ross Facebook group that I'm in, and nobody remembered that from their class either.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very cool. And everybody was like, oh, we learned something new today. I'll remember this, which we'll probably never see something like that again, or they may not ever see it, but still it was really
absolutely
cool.
Yep. And that is very rewarding. And that can be tough for people that aren't in this field. So we love the people and we're here to take care of the pets, but we're here to diagnose, treat, prescribe. Yeah. And you were able to fulfill one of those key parts to being a veterinarian.
Yeah.
And that is so rewarding. You were able, it's not always the answer the client wants to hear, but it's an answer.
Yeah.
And I talked to Dr. Pereira about that previously. We don't always get that opportunity to give an answer.
Yeah.
And when you can, it does feel really good. Even if it's not the answer anyone was hoping for.
Right. Just having the client know means everything. Giving them an answer when they've been, I mean, that's usually the response I get from clients. You know, I'm sad to hear it, but at least I know. And
I know.
It's a really good feeling to be able to give them that peace of mind, even if it's not good news.
I don't think that, I'm just thinking of my husband and my parents and my brother or my in-laws. And I'm thinking through just their jobs real quick in my head, and I could be wrong. I don't really know of other people that are faced with this type of job.
Yeah.
Your goal is to get an answer, and the answer could be a heavy answer. And we see 30-minute appointments all day long.
Yeah.
Starting at 8 and finishing at 5:30.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask my husband, he would say his job is harder. But
he is a teacher.
It is completely
hands
different.
down.
It is completely
hands down.
Though.
I would absolutely support you on that. Absolutely. He has problems of a different type. Very important. Forming children, the most important. You're exactly right.
Yeah. But
absolutely.
It's very different, and it's a unique position to be in. This job.
You're right. It's emotional, and maybe it's an emotional over a longer period of time. And so I worked at the emergency clinic yesterday, and let's say over 6 hours had 15 emotional conversations. It's like bam, bam, bam. And it's not a slow over years of let's work with this child, or let's try to grow this, or I hope the parents are on the same page as probably, or what I hope your husband has help with parents. Which it's probably a whole nother conversation, but it's it can be intense. And so, okay. So to that point, what would you say has been the most difficult part of being a veterinarian, and, or the biggest letdown, or what you wish you could do without or eliminate in this field?
I think it's a combination of two things. It's what you just described, like the emotional roller coaster, coupled with the unhappy client. We're, like you said, we're having these conversations sometimes repeatedly. This last week has been nothing but tough cases.
You had really hard cases.
Euthanasias, trying to help these pets get better, and they're not. And then to go through, because I'm still a human, and I feel those emotions too. They're not my pet, but I did get attached, and I tried to help them. And in my mind, I sometimes feel like I failed, that I couldn't help them, even though I know realistically there is nothing else I could have done. But it's a lot. It's emotionally, it's very stressful. And then to go from that to also having clients come in that are angry, or not trusting you, claiming that you're all about the money. Which, please take a look at my student loans and then tell me I'm all about the money. But, that is really, really challenging. And it's not just for me, it's for most people in this field. And that's why we have not one more vet established, because of the suicide rate in our profession. So it's really tough when you're hearing things like that from clients, or they come in and they shout because they don't like the price of a nail trim here, or whatever it is. It's like, I'm doing everything that I can. I'm doing what I can. I'm here to help you, and you're accusing me of something I didn't do, or you're saying that all I care about is money, when that couldn't be farther from the truth. If I really cared about money, I would be in a different profession, to be honest, because there's not a ton of money in being a veterinarian. So it's dehumanizing sometimes when people act like that, when they come in here, coupled with all of the stress and emotions that we already go through while we're here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that we are finally in for the business side of veterinary medicine, catching up with where we probably could have been, as far as where we're charging. Because, and I've worked at other practices and kind of just recently with helping out, and man, we're thorough as heck here. We're thorough. We have a great staff. We have an efficient staff. We call people back. we handhold a lot here. Maybe too much. Possibly some of our clients are like, stop following up with me. And I don't have to say, I know we do a great job. I'm also obviously the oldest one out of the three of us, of the associates. And so the emotions bounce off of me, possibly. I mean, I've spent more time in counseling. Just because I'm older. Yeah. I've worked through this. I've read a ton of books. I've talked to a lot of people. I did become a mentor vet through AVMA and have somebody that I mentor there. And I hear all of this, and I work on that water rolling off a duck's back quite a bit, but it's still, I have people that are very unhappy. And I think when you really sit down and you get to know me or you or Dr. Pereira, we're great, awesome, hardworking people. I don't know who would choose to go into this job and not really genuinely love people and care about people. Yeah. Because it's where it comes from. Yeah. And you want to take care of that person. You're just doing it through caring for their pet. Yeah. And so I think it's easy to hide behind a keyboard. Yeah. And type up a bad review. And we're not perfect. But hey, let us know. And don't you know, we'll have a meeting about it. And we'll talk about how we can do things differently, because that's how we work here. So it can be heavy. And sometimes just get on the phone and saying, hey, Mrs. Smith, so sorry. And listen, this is what happened. And usually they calm down, but there are some weeks, it's a lot. You had a heavy week. Dr. Pereira had a heavy week. A lot of sick pets. Yes. And it can build when there's not that built-in break.
Yeah. And I think too, just taking a second to educate the clients on why we charge for certain things and can't do things for free. I mean, I think that can help. I mean, my own parents a few months ago said to me, they took their dog to the vet and it was $65, $70 for the exam. And they were like, this is outrageous. Yeah. Why are vet prices so expensive? And, they just keep hiking up all their prices and whatever. And I just said, so first of all, it's not that we're hiking up the prices. It's that we're finally charging what we're worth. Right. And I asked my mom, I said, do you think I'm worth that amount? Do you think my time is worth that amount? Because you know how long I went to school. You know how much debt I have. Yeah. You know how much I love my job and how hard I work. Is my time worth $65, $70? And she finally realized, you know what? You're right. It is. Yeah. So I think it just takes a minute for people to just sit back and realize, like, yes, we do love what we do, but we also can't do it for free. We went to school. We worked really hard for this. What other profession does their job like that, spends that much time, that much money, and then does it for free? Right. Right.
It's a change of how people look at things. You're exactly right. Yeah. Do you think that you are doing now what 8-year-old Candice thought you would be doing now?
I would say between the ages of 8 and 12, I actually thought I was going to be living in the Bahamas, training dolphins or being a vet for dolphins. So close to it, but not quite. I don't know. I was really into exotics, and I worked at the Florida Wildlife Hospital for 7 years before I went to vet school. So I really wanted to do exotic work or wildlife work, but so it's not exactly, but I'm happier than I would have been in that profession anyway. So.
Some of the clients could be labeled as exotic.
Yeah, there you go.
So tell me one of the neatest stories from that experience. Do you have like a unique animal that you looked at, or something that sticks out in your mind? Yeah. That was special?
I mean, it's a lot. It's kind of hard to narrow it down to one. I think the main one that because I did 2 rotations at school, my clinical rotations for zoo med. Okay. And even when I wasn't in zoo med, if I was in like ophthalmology and I heard there was a cool animal down in zoo med, I would volunteer to go look at the animal's eyes or whatever,
Yeah.
you know? So one time I think I was either in derm or ophthalmology, and somebody's pet tiger came in.
Oh, wow.
And it was just the coolest thing ever. So I got to go down there, and I think I was on ophthalmology, so got to help with that part. I was looking at its skin. It was covered in ringworm.
Oh my gosh.
They did an MRI on it. So I got to, I don't think anybody noticed that I wasn't supposed to be there. So I stayed as long as I could.
That's really cool.
But yeah, I think that was probably the one that really stands out. But I've seen a lot of I've worked with so many animals. I did 4 weeks at the Brevard Zoo and got to work with lemurs and giraffes and rhinos. And I did an ultrasound on a ray. I mean, it was really cool. So yeah, a lot of cool things.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. And then one last question I have for you. How do you feel that the 80-year-old Candice is going to feel about the life you've lived?
I don't know if I'll be here at 80. The way I'm feeling now, I'm so tired.
Well, you have little kids.
They're draining.
It's so hard when you have little kids to even think about what it would be like at 80.
Yeah, I don't know. At 80, I think I'll be happy with everything I've done. I might still be working. Who knows?
No, you won't be. You won't be working.
Yeah, I think I'll be happy. I'll miss it. I'll miss doing this. Like, it'll be hard, especially if I have a pet and I have to take the pet to the vet. I'm probably going to be one of those, I used to be a vet. Did you think to check this blood parameter? Let's do a low-dose dex. So I'm sure I'll probably be that person that wants to prove that I still know what I'm talking about.
Can you even imagine what it's going to be like then?
It's going to be very different. I mean, how quickly everything, like just from me graduating till now, it's only been 7-8 years. And I just can't believe some of the stuff that people are talking. I'm like, I've never learned that. I never heard of it.
Just some of the legislation that's changed, not in our state, but in other states with who might be able to practice by then.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
Yes, that'll be very interesting. But I am sure the 80-year-old Candice will be proud.
I hope so.
She will be. And I am sure you will be alive because if you enjoy it this much, it will help keep you young.
Yeah.
Yeah. To everybody out there, thank you so much for listening today with my conversation with Dr. Candice Anderson. It was a great podcast. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.